Hi everyone, welcome to Shami Couch. I'm going to be reading some of the words that we covered in the first post so you get a feel for pronunciation and usage. The first word, in terms of letter changes that we gave as an example, was qahwa. That is the modern standard Arabic pronunciation. A lot of times you will hear it changed to ahwe. So the qaf, the Q sounding letter, will change to a hamza, which is more of just a stop. So most people say ahwe. If you also notice, the ta marbuta at the end of the word makes a slight change from a, which you're probably used to e. So not qahwa, ahwe. So it's similar, but it's a little different, so it takes some getting used to. The next couple of example words are buza. The original Fusha pronunciation, modern standard, would be buza. So this is the letter we see changing to a z sound. So buza becomes buza, ice cream. And muwazzaf sometimes changes to muwazzaf, but in Jordan and Israel, Palestine, you're going to hear muwazzaf a lot more. Probably in Syria and Lebanon, and especially Egypt, it would change to muwazzaf, so that Z sound. So it really depends on the word. Don't get too crazy with changing these letters on your own until you've heard them pronounced in a different way, is my advice. Next, we're moving on to dhal. So the example words that we gave were idha, which is a conditional word. It technically means if. It is very often pronounced izza, very quickly, izza. And khud, so we see in this case the dhal does not change to a z sound, it changes to a d sound. So it's khud, not khud. So you really do, like I just said, have to pay attention to how people are pronouncing specific words. There aren't really general rules that hold true for every case in terms of sound changes. So it's something you're going to have to get used to. And lastly, we have the word mathalan. Sometimes you'll hear this pronounced masalan. So the th can change to a s sound. Sometimes it changes to a t sound, like the word thalatha often becomes thalatha. So look out for that. Now we're going to move on to the question words and some of the example sentences that we gave in the blog post. So first, what? Modern standard learners, you know that what is traditionally ma or madha. In Fusha, there are two words, shu and ish. They can pretty much be used interchangeably. And there's no kind of ma is followed by a noun, or madha is followed by verbs. There's no kind of distinction like that in terms of these words. So you'll hear shu or ish. And the example sentences that we gave are shu ba'arifni. My host mother, while I was living in Hebron, used to say this all the time. Shu ba'arifni. It's like, what do I know? And then we also gave shu biddik fi, which means like, what do you want with it, or what do you want with him? You also might hear ish kaman, which means what else. But for the most part, shu and ish can be used interchangeably. Next we have where, wane. Sort of sounds like aina. So these words aren't too far from what you'll hear in modern standard Arabic, but you do have to sit down and kind of think about them. The example sentence we gave was Ya Ustaz, wain al-hammam. It's pretty straightforward. Wain is always going to come before the noun that you're asking about, whereas in Egypt the question words tend to follow the nouns. So that's a little bit of a difference between Levantine and Egyptian Arabic. When, you often hear imta. Sometimes people use the modern standard word mata, but a lot of the time you'll hear imta. And the example sentences are أنت بدك تشتغل على التقرير, which means when do you want to work on the report. A really important concept is how to say I want in Levantine Arabic. In Fusha you would say أريد, whereas in Levantine people use the verb bid. So the way that it works is it's not super intuitive. You attach whatever possessive suffix is appropriate for the subject onto that stem of bid. So for I want, it would be biddi. For you male want, biddak. For you female wants, biddik. For he wants, biddu. For she wants, bidha. For you plural want, bidkum. For we want, bidna. They want, bidhum. And notice that for he want I said biddu, not bidduhu. For some reason in Levantine colloquial that H just kind of gets dropped. Makes it a little bit easier for you. So then the word for why is leish. And if you think about kind of ish meant what, leish means why. They're sort of similar. Maybe that'll help you. I don't know. So the example sentence is ليش بتعمل هيك. ليش means why, as I just explained. بتعمل means, for Fusha learners, this is the word يفعل, to do. In Amiya it just becomes عمل. And عمل, the Fusha meaning to work, switches to يشتغل in colloquial. So there's kind of a shift there. Hik means like this. Very important word, very good to know. How, the word for how is kif. It's spelled the same, but in modern standard you pronounce it more like kaif with an A sound there, whereas in Jordan and Palestine, Israel, you'll usually hear something more similar to kif. Jordan, they tend to keep the kaif pronunciation. Lebanon and Syria is definitely a lot more kif. And I forgot to mention, in Jordan, they definitely say biddi. In the West Bank, definitely say biddi, but in Lebanon, Syria, it tends to sound a little bit more like baddi, with an a sound, not an e. So the example sentence for how, كيف كان الشغل اليوم. We just said that يشتغل was to work, so شغل is work, how was work today. And then our last example sentence, the word for how much is qaddesh. Sometimes you'll hear people say qaddesh. A lot of Jordanians use the g pronunciation for qaf and not the hamza, qaddesh. I even heard sometimes talking to people who had grown up in more rural areas, ade, without the sh on the end. That happens with leish sometimes too. You might hear someone ask le, although that is a more Egyptian pronunciation. So the example sentence that we have is Adesh kilo el kunafa. Kunafa is a delicious dessert. I was 100% addicted while I was living in Jordan. I used to skip class to go buy kunafa. It was pretty bad. So that's all I have for you today. Join us next time. Look up for a new post very soon, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Please feel free to comment with questions, concerns, suggestions, whatever you need clarified. Thanks for watching Shami Couch today.